Early May 1973, on the Isle of Wight, two children wandered off the usual path near Sandown, chasing the kind of boredom that makes mischief feel like adventure. What follows is a single account, recorded years later, strange enough to survive decades, and simple enough to sound like something a child would actually say. Before we call it anything, here is the ground rule. No photos, no official report that proves it, no second witness outside the two kids. What we do have is a detailed statement taken by an investigator, with the family requesting anonymity and a location you can still walk today. The girl was 7, and later given the pseudonym Faye in the report. She and a boy of the same age were exploring near Lake Common, a rough stretch of grass and scrub that sits close to Sandown. It was daytime, around 4 in the afternoon, not midnight, not candlelight. They heard a sound first. A high wailing that did not fit the birds, the wind, or the distant beach. The kind of noise that makes you stop, tilt your head, and decide whether you are scared or curious. Curiosity won, as it often does when you are 7. The wailing seemed to come from ahead, across golf links, and toward wetter ground. The children followed, stepping off the neat edges and into the messy places people do not visit unless they have to. Somewhere nearby, Sandown Airport sat quiet in the background of the day. They reached a small bridge. Under it, something moved. A hand appeared, blue like a glove, reaching up from the shadowed space beneath the boards. The children froze, then watched as the hand pulled back, as if whoever owned it had noticed them. Then the figure came out, not running, not lunging. It climbed up carefully, as if avoiding mud, and stood in full view. The children described a short, broad shape dressed in a brown outfit that looked wrinkled and worn, with white trousers below. The face was what stuck. Pale yellow skin, no hair, and large eyes. The nose was thick with flaring nostrils. The mouth looked wide and red, but the children said they did not see teeth. It did not look like a mask to them, but it did look unlike anyone they had met. Most adults would stop right here and say, "Clown." But the children did not start with a circus. They started with the feeling that something did not belong. The figure held a book, not a weapon. A book, carried like a prop someone forgot to explain. It moved away from them toward a structure the kids said was nearby. A hut, metallic, low, and windowless, set in the swampy meadow. The children could see only one obvious opening, but the figure did not use it. It went to the side and climbed in through a gap or opening like a low window. They stayed hidden and watched. The wailing started again, louder now. It felt like it was coming from inside the hut, as if the building itself had a throat. The children did not run. They listened and waited, and did the worst thing for safety and the best thing for a story. The figure reappeared, holding something else. A black, knobbed object with a handle and a white, flexible length, described like a cable. It carried the object as if it mattered, as if it was part of what the wailing was for. Then it slipped back into the hut. Minutes passed. The wailing rose and fell. The children edged closer, step by step, until the hut filled their view. There are moments in childhood where you believe the world will reward bravery with answers. This was one of those moments. When they were close enough, the figure came out again and stood facing them. There was no sudden chase, no scream, just a strange stillness, like a decision had been made. The children later said it seemed calm, almost pleased that they were there. They noticed its hands. They described them as wooden, with 5 stumpy fingers on each, more like carved blocks than living joints. The hands were covered by blue gloves in their first glimpse, but now they focused on the shape beneath, and it did not match a human hand. The figure began to communicate. It spoke to them, and they spoke back. The report records it as friendly and matter-of-fact, not growling or threatening. At one point, it described itself in a way the children remembered as being all colors, a sentence that sits oddly in the mind. Then it offered them something to eat, berries held out in its hand. The children refused, not because they were brave, but because even at 7, you know you do not accept food from a stranger, especially one who climbed out from under a bridge. The figure did not insist. The figure showed them the inside of the hut, or at least the doorway view. The children described wallpaper on the walls, a detail so ordinary it makes the rest feel worse. Wallpaper belongs in a bedroom, not in a metal shed in a marsh. They also described a small bare bungalow nearby, connected in their memory to the figure, as if it lived there or used the place. It mentioned living on the mainland with others. It mentioned a wife. It also indicated a map, as if navigation was part of the story it wanted to tell. At some point, the children decided to leave. The spell broke the way spells do, not with a bang, but with a sudden awareness that you are far from home and something is not right. They backed away, then turned and ran, the wailing fading behind them as the reeds swallowed the hut from view. They did not report it instantly to strangers. They went home and told the girl's father. That delay matters because it fits how children process fear. The date in the report places this conversation on June 2nd, 1973, around 3 weeks after the encounter, which suggests the memory stayed sharp. The father listened. He did not laugh it off. He took it seriously enough to look for the place. But when adults go back, the world rarely matches the way children remember it. The hut could not be found. The area was searched, but the clear landmark was gone, leaving only the location and the story. That missing hut is the hinge of the whole case. If it existed, where did it go? If it did not exist, why did 2 children agree on wallpaper, a bridge, and a strange figure with a book? The report does not solve that. It simply records it, then leaves you with the same questions. Years later, the story reached an investigator and was written up in a journal focused on unusual reports. The investigator was Norman Oliver. The account was published in the late 1970s, with the witnesses protected by pseudonyms. That is why we have detail but not public names. Now, the boring explanation. Children misperceive, memory rewrites. A local person in costume could look unrecognizable in bad light, even in daytime, if the setting is unfamiliar and the mind is primed by fear. A shed could be mistaken for something else. Wallpaper could be a misremembered texture. But the account has stubborn textures that resist easy dismissal. The book, the berries, the talk of a wife and the mainland, the black object with a white, flexible length, the calm tone. These details do not feel like a typical prank because a prank wants a reaction. And this figure behaved like it had its own private routine. Then there is the setting. A swampy meadow near a little-used airport, reeds, bridges, and hidden corners where someone could build a shelter, live rough, or hide equipment without being seen. If the figure was human, the location suggests someone who knew the area and trusted it to stay quiet. There is also the possibility of a misidentified person with a medical condition, heavy clothing, and gloves that made the hands look rigid. A scarf or makeup could flatten features. A sunlit face can still look wrong when the eyes catch you from an unexpected angle. That does not solve the hut, but it keeps the story on the ground. Another explanation is that the children encountered an eccentric adult, perhaps living rough, perhaps unwell, perhaps simply avoiding people. The friendly tone fits that. The offer of berries fits that. The talk of living elsewhere fits that. The wailing, though, is harder, unless it was a device, an animal, or sound, carrying strangely. And then there is the explanation people come here for. Something not human, a visitor, an entity, a presence that borrowed the idea of a clown the way dreams borrow faces, mixing bright colors and wrong anatomy. The problem is not belief. The problem is evidence. The report gives us narrative, not proof. What makes the Sandown case special is that it sits on the border. It is not a classic ghost story in a ruined house. It is not a clean UFO report in an open field. It is a daylight encounter with a figure that behaved like it belonged to its own ecosystem, complete with habits, objects, and a place to go. Listen to what the children did not say. They did not describe blood. They did not describe violence. They did not claim it attacked them. They described strangeness and then conversation. That is why the story lingers. It does not end with a jump scare. It ends with the uneasy feeling that you met something that did not need to be dramatic. If you want to test the account, the best tool is geography. Look at maps of Sandown, Lake Common, and the wetlands near the airport. Ask where a child could wander, where a bridge might be, where a hut could be hidden, and how sound might travel across flat ground. The second tool is time. The report says early May 1973, and the father was told June 2nd, 1973. In that gap, memory can distort, but it can also consolidate. Children rehearse a frightening day in their minds until the images harden. The question is whether the shared details came from the event or from retelling. The third tool is motive. If it was a person, why approach children calmly and offer berries? Why carry a book? Why create or tolerate the wailing sound? If it was a prank, why choose a marsh and a hut instead of a crowd? If it was something else, why speak at all? There is a reason this case keeps resurfacing. It feels like a story that slipped in from a different genre. A creature from a children's book, dropped into a real afternoon, then picked up again and removed before anyone else could see it. Most legends grow over time. This one arrives already formed, then vanishes. One detail in the report is almost cruel in its simplicity. The children described the figure as broad, not tall, with a quiet confidence, not a predator. Not a clown trying to make you laugh, something that was simply there, as if it had always been there, and the children were the intruders. If you have ever had a daylight moment where the world feels misaligned, you know the emotion. Your skin tightens, your brain searches for a label. When it cannot find one, it starts writing. Sandown Clown, as a name, is that writing, a label pasted over a gap in comprehension. This is why I keep the ending careful. 2 children reported something strange. An adult wrote it down. We cannot prove it, and we cannot unwrite it. The best we can do is hold it up to the light, keep the confirmed pieces separate from the guesses, and ask what kind of world makes a story like this possible. If you want to add to the record, do not add a theory, add a question. What detail matters most to you? The wailing, the hut, the book, the wooden hands, or the calm conversation? And if you are from the Isle of Wight, tell me what that area was like in the early 1970s, before the story had a name.